name is Muhammad Ali. The people know my name is Muhammad Ali.
In the history of the sweet science, no figure has been as charismatic as Muhammad Ali. But the story of Muhammad Ali is more than just the story of a young man who went on to become heavyweight champion. The story of Ali is the story of a black athlete born Cassius Clay, who helped define the 1960s, who altered the consciousness of black and white America, and who, between 1964 and 1970, risked his title, his fortune, and his legacy for the principles he believed in. A man who stood up to everyone and backed down from no one, all for the right to say, my name is Muhammad Ali.
No one created Muhammad Ali. He invented himself, and that is a deeply American phenomenon.
With the right backing, I believe I have a nice chance to become the world's heavyweight champion.
Well, I'm really the uncrowned champion. I have fulfilled all of my prophecies. I'm up to date in all of my predictions. My train is running on schedule.
I am the king of the world. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Hold it, you're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I took up the world.
He's the independent hipster, the jazz man turned boxer.
This is the Ali Show.
Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
I said that I'm going to be a man. I'm going to fight it legally. If I lose it, I'm just going to jail.
Even if it means facing machine gun fire that day, I will face it before denouncing Elijah Muhammad and the religion of Islam. I'm ready to die.
Count me, mate. Count the boys. Count those boys. Count like a butterfly, train like a bee. Count like a butterfly, train like a bee.
To understand the man who became Muhammad Ali is to take a trip back to the segregated South of the 1940s and 1950s. Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. was born in 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky. His father, Cassius Sr., earned a meager living painting signs and billboards, and his mother, Odessa, worked as a household domestic.
Ali came up, wasn't a broken home. His mother and father were there. I mean, it might not have been the world's greatest marriage, but his mother and father were there. If anything, Ali was kind of spoiled as a kid. Now, sometimes spoiled kids turn out to do really genius things because their parents, and particularly their mothers, have given them tremendous confidence and said, you can do whatever you want in the world. But Ali came up with this idea, I'm special, I'm different.
When Cassius Clay was 12 years old, his bike was stolen from outside of a gymnasium in downtown Louisville. He ran inside to report the theft to a policeman named Joe Martin, who was in the basement training local kids to box. As Cassius went down the stairs to the gym, the sights and the sounds excited him so much that he almost forgot about the bike. In a matter of days, he was a regular at the gym, devoting his energies almost exclusively to boxing. By the time he was 18, he had won over 100 amateur bouts, won 6 Kentucky Golden Gloves championships, 2 national tournaments, and 2 AAU titles. In 1960, though still unpolished, Clay made the U.S. Olympic team and was on his way to Rome when a young sports reporter got his first look at the future champion.
It's hard to say what it was that made you know that this was somebody very, very special, Cassius Clay. But even then, at 18 years old, if he came into a room, if he came into a scene, he dominated it. And there were older people around, there were more experienced people around, but he lit up whatever area he was in. And when he said something, you listened, and you wanted to believe him, and you did believe him.
Well, yes, people do say I'm cocky. Some say I need a good whipping. Some say I talk too much. But anything that I say, I'm willing to back up.
In 1963, Clay took his show to the media and campaigned for a title fight harder than most candidates campaigned for a presidential election. Finally, in November, the deal was struck. The heavyweight champion of the world, Sonny Liston, would take on little-known challenger Cassius Clay. The odds were 7-1 against Clay. But Clay knew what he was doing, both how to get under Liston's skin and how to draw an audience for the fight.
You just wait. Come on over here. Let's take this interview. Let's get this on film. Let's draw more money. Come on. Let's get this on film.
I don't care if you're drunk up.
I'm for real, man.
I'm for real.
I predicted 8 on Liston, but I heard where he wants me to be a sparring partner, and he's going to shove his glove down my throat. So that's officially announced to 6. Liston must fall in 6.
Today on Wide World of Sports, you'll see one of the most bizarre sports events of our time, the Liston Clay Championship fight. The champ arrived at the weigh-in sullen and quiet, as expected. But Clay, it was an incredible performance. He was like a man possessed, shouting and screaming, "You a chump, you a chump, are you scared? I'm ready to rumble. I'm the champ, I'm ready to rumble." That's what Cassius screamed. Dr. Alexander Robbins, restraining him, said Clay is nervous, he's scared, he's burning up a lot of energy.
The confusion was the kid's scared out of his mind, and he's just babbling and doing all kind of stuff. And so, and I don't mind telling you, all of us were not sure that wasn't true.
Clay said later he had rehearsed every move he made that day. He was simply responding to Liston's threat to annihilate him in the first round. But Cassius decided that he would attack at the weigh-in.
The tough guy's a little leery of a guy who's either a psychopath or nuts completely. And Liston thought he was nuts.
In round 6, we note that Sonny flat-footed stance most of the time. Easy target. Easy. Another jarring.
For the first 6 rounds of the fight, the taller, faster Clay dominated. Then, before the start of the 7th round...
They might be stopping it. That might be all, ladies and gentlemen.
Never in the history of boxing has there been such a startling upset. Clay screams his defiance to newsmen. He calls upon them to join together and admit he's the greatest fighter in the world today.
Give us that poetry on number 7.
He wanted to go to heaven, so I took him in 7.
You took him in 7.
I am the king of the world.
Hold it, hold it,
I'm
hold it.
pretty.
Hold it, you're not that pretty.
I'm a bad man.
Wait.
I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
Wait a minute, Cash.
I whooped him so bad he had to go to the hospital, and I'm still pretty. What you gonna say about that, huh? Never make me no underdog, and never talk about who's gonna stop me. Well, ain't nobody gonna stop me. Not a heavyweight in the world fast enough to stop me. Champs ain't made, champs are born. I was born.
Clay didn't have to brag. His victory over Liston spoke for itself. He was David slaying Goliath, and every kid who had ever wanted to get back at the neighborhood bully rejoiced in Clay's triumph. When we return, the new heavyweight champion transforms himself from Cassius Clay into Muhammad Ali.
I have a religion, which is the religion of Islam, that most people don't understand and they don't seem to like. And you're right, I'm a clean American boy, pitch of health, Olympic gold medal winner, brought all type of honors to the country, no jail records, no, don't smoke, don't drink, no women's scandals, a perfect clean slate.
I am dropping my slave name, and I am Cassius X, okay? And that shook an awful lot of people.
Before he had beaten Liston, Clay was looked upon as not much more than a clown with a big mouth. Cassius X, now the heavyweight champion, on his way to becoming Muhammad Ali, was viewed quite differently. His new religion, symbolized by his new name, was seen as a threat to many people. In fact, Clay had embraced Islam as far back as 1959 when he was still in high school. He'd gone to a Golden Gloves tournament in Chicago and encountered some Muslims on the South Side. He brought home a record album of Elijah Muhammad's sermons and began to warm to his message.
And he goes back to his high school where he is not the world's greatest student at all. And faced with writing a term-ending paper, the subject he wants to write about is the Nation of Islam. No one in Louisville, or hardly anyone in Louisville at that time, had ever heard of the Nation of Islam. It was this tiny little sect. Its presence in Louisville was next to nothing. And Cassius Clay, then Cassius Clay, freaked out his teacher with the notion that that's what he wanted to write his paper about, and she disallowed it.
Clay's teacher wasn't the only one fearful of the Nation of Islam. Much of America was leery of the religion's posture and its message of black empowerment.
if you are a free man, and the white man say you are free, prove that you are a man. Don't say, I want to make you treat me right, and you have made a slave out of my fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers for 400 years. No, I don't want to make you do nothing but let me go.
But the young Clay believed in Islam, and as he grew older in the still segregated South, the black Muslim message struck a deep chord within him.
His concept of being the very best in the world didn't jibe with, but not in the South. You know, here you're the best boxer, the best box office attraction, the best of everything, the handsomest, the best of everything, but not in the South. When the Muslims came along and said black is best, black is beautiful, it suited them like a glove.
The early 1960s were not a prudent time for a young, black, and still unproven heavyweight fighter to announce that he was a Muslim. Indeed, back before the Liston fight, when Cassius Clay was campaigning for a shot at the heavyweight title, Clay had kept secret his religious beliefs for fear that as a black Muslim he would be denied a title fight.
Been a master in Los Angeles, and when I was taken by the mosque, we would actually drive around the corner, see who's looking, and then when we thought that it was okay, he would get out and run inside.
No matter the Muslims' message to Ali, the message to white America delivered by Elijah Muhammad and by Malcolm X was a threatening one.
The mainstream press really has no idea who the so-called black Muslims are, what Malcolm X is, the idea that, he could, cause revolution in the streets. And so that, he was a very dangerous specter in America's mind.
Where did this come from, the title of the Muslims being a hate group?
Well, the press, the anti-Muslim press, tried to paint that distorted image purposely to make most of the Negroes in this country afraid to be identified with it.
Malcolm X made people very nervous, and now suddenly he's attached to what we've always said was the symbol of manhood in America. Potentially the heavyweight champion of the world.
Prior to the Liston Clay fight in Miami, the fight promoters were fearful that Malcolm X's preaching would incite violence and asked him to leave Miami. Surprising many, Malcolm did. The day after the Liston Clay fight, the name on the stationery became official. That morning, the newly named heavyweight champion of the world, Cassius X, appeared in front of reporters a different man.
He said that he was going to be a gentleman from now on, everything was going to be fine. It seemed like kind of a letdown after everything that happened. Now he said he's going to be nice. Well, what are we going to write about? And so, people started, hectoring him. What about the Muslims? Are you a card-carrying Muslim? What do you think about white women? What do you think about integration? And suddenly he said, well, stop. He said, stop. I don't have to be who you want me to be. I'm free to be who I want.
I don't have to be what you want me to be. I'm free to be what I want to be and think what I want to think. Right?
I can't tell you when I first heard that on television when he said, I don't have to be what you want me to be. When he said that, oh, man, it was like an electric current went through me. I never heard a black man say anything like that, least of all an athlete.
A lot of people feel that you've provided a very bad image for boxing because of your religion, very honestly. It's a minority group that you belong to, and a lot of people object to it.
That couldn't be a bad image because I'm a strictly religion person who professed the religion of Islam, which is believed in by a good 400 million people or more. And I don't see why this would make me bad. I'm not in the racial disturbance you have today, such as forcing myself on people, leading marches, and I don't see where I'm such a bad champion.
By saying that he had joined the Nation of Islam, Muhammad Ali really antagonized the whole power structure of the United States, and he did it without any hesitation.
You don't see where some people could accuse the Muslim groups of being hate groups or terrorists?
No, sir.
You've never seen any evidence?
We are the victims of hate. Just the black people in America in general are victims of hate. We cannot be taught to hate as they say he do. I think if a person can be here for 400 years suffering what the American so-called Negro have suffered, the murders that was just committed in the South, and 30 or 40 of our people who were shot down in the street of Los Angeles by Army equipment and war equipment. I don't think you can call us haters because we want to separate from these people who are continuing doing this.
The 60s were sassy. The 60s were emotional. The 60s were anti-establishment. And he captured that decade perfectly in his personality and in his fighting style.
Unlike other black heavyweight champions like Joe Louis and Floyd Patterson, Ali refused to pander to the white establishment. Now he was fighting for a new black morality.
When you look at television, you see these two cars, one black, one white, and they put a gallon of gas in each one to see which car can go the farthest. And every time the black car stops first and the white car keeps going. So this brainwashes the Negro, see? Then he goes to the drugstore, he orders 2 dips ice cream. He said, I want a dip of chocolate, dip of vanilla. And every time they put the chocolate on the bottom and the vanilla.
By the mid-60s, Ali's influence had extended beyond the boxing ring. In many ways, he was no longer simply an athlete, and his supporters no longer confined to the world of boxing. Ali's new message, in fact, was received most favorably outside the United States. In 1964, Ali embarked on a trip to Africa, where he was treated like a national hero.
They would come out of villages, half-naked, all kind of description, coming out to see Ali. They may not could speak English, but they could say Ali. That's all they would say, Ali, 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 Ali.
Even as Ali's worldwide persona was growing because of his outspoken religious beliefs, his association with Islam continued to cause controversy at home, where many refused to recognize his new Islamic name. In 1965, Ali met Sonny Liston for a rematch in the tiny town of Lewiston, Maine, and in the ring he was greeted by a hostile crowd.
Muhammad Ali.
Ali destroyed Liston in the first round with what would immediately be dubbed the Phantom Punch. The punch was so called because many ringside observers never saw it and quickly concluded that Liston had thrown the fight, fearing threats made by the black Muslims connected to Ali.
All right, Cassius. Wait a minute now. Muhammad Ali, better known as Cassius Clay.
6 months later, Ali's Muslim name became an issue when he defended his title against Floyd Patterson, who insisted on calling the champion Cassius Clay. For the first time, the world saw a side of Ali it had never seen before, a cruel side. Patterson's insistence on calling Ali Cassius Clay enraged the champion to such an extent that he handed Patterson an extraordinarily vicious beating. Ali battered the helpless Patterson round after round.
And it does seem as though Clay has prophesied exactly what he would do, that he would punish him severely. Patterson's feet seem to be gone. He just can't get any coordination going at all.
When the referee finally put an end to the cruelty, it was said that Ali had become the most hated man in America. 15 months later, in 1967, Ernie Terrell suffered a similar fate when he took on the champion. Now, 3 years after Ali's conversion to Islam, Terrell also refused to acknowledge Ali's Muslim name.
I'd like to say something right here. You know, Cassius Clay, yes.
Why do you want to say Cassius Clay when Howard Cosell and everybody is calling me Muhammad Ali? Now, why you got to be the one of all people whose color to keep saying Cassius Clay?
Howard Cosell is not the one who's going to fight you. I am.
You make it really hard on yourself now.
Well,
why don't you keep the thing in the sport angle? Why don't you call me my name, man?
Well, what's your name? You told me your name was Cassius Clay a few years ago.
I never told you my name was Cassius Clay. My name is Muhammad Ali, and you will announce it right there in the center of that ring after the fight if you don't do it now.
For the benefit of this broadcast, him. All right?
You acting just like an old Uncle Tom. Another Floyd Patterson. I'm going to punish you.
Let me tell you something, man.
You ain't got no
Back off of me.
Don't call me no Uncle Tom.
That's what you are, Uncle Tom.
Why are you going to call me Uncle Tom? I ain't do nothing.
You heard me.
Call me no
Just
Uncle
back
Tom.
off of me.
And so, ladies and
Uncle
gentlemen,
Tom?
as the two contestants prepare for battle right now...
Back off of me, man. Back off of me, man.
Like Patterson, Terrell had gotten under the skin of Ali. And when they entered the ring, Ali unleashed what some called a sadistic beating. He mocked and taunted Terrell with shouts of, "What's my name, Uncle Tom? What's my name?"
What were some of the things he said to you?
Well, he would say that you're an Uncle Tom, he said, and I'm representing black people and you're not.
The big question as far as the press was concerned was your pitiless taunting of this man.
Well,
how do you defend that?
Well, I'll defend that like this, Howard. I told the press before the fight, I faced Ernie Terrell as a man to man, and I told him that my name is Muhammad Ali in the world, and people know my name is Muhammad Ali, and this was the approach, and he deliberately insulted me publicly and said my name is Cassius Clay, and it's not so. I told Terrell, I looked the press right into their eyes, and I told them that I would do this, so I don't see why they're so shocked.
The fact is, reporters, many of them printed it,
well, that's
cruelty in your eyes, the malice in your voice.
I'm out to be cruel. That's what the boxing game is about. He's out to beat me, or I'm out to beat him.
In 1966, Ali's relationship with the press and the public took another dramatic turn for the worse. Like many American men eligible for the draft, Ali had been tested and classified. His classification was 1Y, deferred status due to low test scores. But for reasons unbeknownst to Ali, he was later reclassified 1A, eligible to serve. Reporter Robert Lipsyte was with Ali the day he got the news.
He became incensed. His first reaction was, how could they reclassify me without giving me another test? They said I was dumb. Now suddenly I'm smarter. More calls came. More Muslims arrived. Started to say, you're going to go to Vietnam. You're going to be on the firing line. Some cracker sergeant's going to put a machine gun up your ass. Somebody is going to drop a hand grenade between your legs. And it's getting tense.
Now, I was not 1A on the last time they checked me. All of a sudden, they seem to be anxious to push me into the Army and throw me in the 1A category out of 30 or 40 men that they could have picked from, and 2 men made the decision. And another thing I don't understand, I really don't understand, is why me, a man who pays the salary of at least 50,000 men in Vietnam, a man who the government takes $6 million from a year out in 2 fights, a man who can pay in 2 fights for 3 bomber planes, why would you take and seek out and be anxious to call me out of 30 men who you could have called, and I'm fighting for the government every day?
And bang, he said, I got nothing against them Viet Cong. That was the soundbite all over the world. I got nothing against that Viet Cong. Well, now suddenly we have this traitorous, ungrateful, Negro heavyweight champion. And suddenly, that part of the world that was ready to turn on him, turned on him.
I must confess, I thought he was quite disloyal at the time. And I was part of that scene that said, my country right or wrong. And even though there were these abuses, I thought that the backlash of what he did was going to become contagious to all the black athletes that followed.
The backlash was contagious, and other black athletes did follow Ali's path.
When he said that, and I think I'm quoting him correctly here, ain't no Viet Cong ever called me nigger, every black American understood what he was talking about. Why are we being sent to fight some people in Southeast Asia who have never offended us? Most black Americans would much rather be enlisted to fight racism here in America and do that by any means necessary.
But you know that you're not going to take the step. Is that not true?
No comment.
Why have you said
And I should bring you in to take the step.
Apparently, you still have a little bit of humor left in you, even at this late moment.
You should take the step. Howard Cosell.
You're not taking the step.
Howard Cosell needs to take the step.
Why are you smiling so jovially when you're about to perhaps terminate your career?
No comment.
Ali knew that even if he did join the Army, he would not be sent into combat. Still, when called to the induction center in Houston, Texas, he refused to sign up.
By doing all this, by not volunteering, that he knew that maybe that he would end up in jail. But, as he said, one of his pointers said, clean out my cell, take my ass to jail.
When we return, Muhammad Ali pays the price in exile.
It has been said that I have two alternatives. Either go to jail or go to the Army. But I would like to say that there is another alternative. And that alternative is justice.
Up until, this period as well, into the middle 60s, we had also been led to believe that there was something less than manly, sissified, about all these college boys who didn't want to go fight for their country, where working class guys were going, and blue-collar guys and guys with construction boots were going to fight for their country. And these sissies on college campuses, pretended they were against the war, but really were afraid to fight. Now, here was the most masculine man in the world saying, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to fight in this war. It's wrong. And he suddenly gave that sense of manhood, this testosterone shower, over all the colleges in America.
Upon refusing to be drafted, Ali was arrested. His boxing license was suspended, and he was stripped of the heavyweight title. With Ali absent from the sport, a tournament was held to determine a new heavyweight champion. Joe Frazier came out the winner. But outside the ring, Frazier was now caught in the political whirlwind that surrounded Ali. Exiled from boxing and unable to earn a living inside the ring, Muhammad Ali now became a symbol, and his life outside the ring became a statement.
To me, the most interesting part of Muhammad Ali's life, the triumphant part, is the part that leads up to and ends with exile. And that is the self-creation of a unique American hero, a figure that would seem to be folkloric but was real.
Again and again, you come to the fact that Ali, in an intuitive way, not an intellectual way, knows what's good for himself. And he has this instinct about things. He makes it work for him. It always works.
Through the power of his personality, Ali turned the whirlwind that surrounded him to his own advantage. During his exile, he became a political and social force. He appeared on television talk shows. He took a part in a Broadway play, and he spoke on college campuses across America.
If you had told me I'd be offered a professorship to teach philosophy and poetry at Oxford and speaking at Harvard, man, I never would have believed it. So I'm real humble, and I'm thankful to be here. It's such a high seat of learning, and I'm just a boxer when most boxers can't even talk. You couldn't invite Joe Frazier, George Foreman. This is the Ali Show. And this here.
I think Ali is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He may only have a high school education, but he had an intuitive, instinctive, existential intelligence that was tremendous. So I think of him as of having a master's degree in life.
Let's not think that Muhammad Ali was one of the great thinkers on this, but as an actor, as a political actor, acting out of courage, acting out of a sense of responsibility to himself, to the social climate, to his religion, that's where he was extraordinary.
Don't get on me. I'm a victim of circumstances. And you don't look white no way. What are you? You're Jewish. Well, you know, now, hold it, ain't nothing wrong with him being Jew. Let me tell you something. You know, your people call a lot of hell, too. They used to have signs on Miami Beach saying, no Jews and niggers allowed. You know what the Jews did? They got mad and bought the beach. You got, hold it. You separated and you come together and you bought the beach. So, I mean, everything that we talking about, we should get together and do for ourselves. That's what y'all do. And you as a Jew talking like that, you guys, and you're a heavyweight anyway, so cool it. How do you think the national security, whatever it was you said would be, if every boy decided to run to Canada like all the white boys are doing, or all of the boys ran to, all the boys said they had a bad knee, or if all the boys said they had to support their mother, or if all of the boys had to go to, where else these white people going? Sweden and London, England. I took my step back because I am a Muslim.
By virtue of his stand against the Vietnam War, Ali in exile became a lightning rod for Americans to debate the issues confronting their society.
I would like to hear this from you, and I want the world and the cameras to hear. Who's the heavyweight champion of the world? One more time, we don't want no excuses. They may say the film was bad or the camera was broke. One more time, who's the champion of the world?
From my point of view, what Elijah Muhammad is doing to you is diseasing your mind.
You have the nerve to be on a TV show like this and look at me like I'm wrong for saying Elijah Muhammad is poisoning you by telling you that we're your enemies. Yeah. And I feel it and see it every day. And every black man watching this show know you are enemies. And you have the nerve to stand up here and say Elijah Muhammad is poisoning my mind. He cannot teach us that you are enemy. You taught us. And your people daily, Martin Luther King is bumped off unjustly. Adam Clayton Powers bumped off unjustly. They took my title unjustly. They killed Medgar Evers unjustly. All the integrators who love white folks was unjustly kicked out of Washington. They've been deprived of education and poverty throughout the country. They just came back from Vietnam, 12 boys in Chicago, and they sat on the television and they told how white soldiers are teaching Viet Congs to hate them. They fly rebel communist flags, and they doing everything that they can to them right there in Vietnam. Now you're going to tell me that Elijah Muhammad and trying to make the public think that he's poisoning me by teaching us the truth.
When we return, the establishment finally accepts Muhammad Ali.
My step back because I am a Muslim.
Brother had rejected all the hype about the good old USA since he came out of Kentucky with the name of Cassius Clay. He beat Sonny Liston to become a part of history, then announced he was to be called Muhammad Ali. Not stepping forward to be drafted was a hell of a decision, because he'd have gotten no closer to Vietnam than watching it on television. He's 26, and in Louisville they say he's been selected. And on the basis of religion, he then conscientiously objected. So for 3.5 years of his prime, they wouldn't let him fight, which shows that sometimes you get punished, even when you're right.
America's paying a great price at this moment. She's losing millions of dollars, billions of dollars just for a stand in the principle. She's losing black and white boys daily. She's losing world power. She's got enemies all over the world because of the war just for a stand. So we all pay. And I'm just paying greatly for what I believe, which is unpopular in this time in this civilization.
America's views towards the Vietnam War began to change, but it was a slow change.
Well, the interesting part of the whole Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay situation
was for me the brawl that was taking place in New York with Howard Cosell and Dick Young of the Daily News, and I must confess, many of my colleagues in the film business and in the radio business were anti-Muhammad Ali at the time.
Red Smith, for example, didn't get Muhammad Ali at all. Muhammad Ali offended not only his political sensibilities, but also his sensibilities as a fight observer. And it wasn't until Red Smith later in his life went through a kind of political conversion and a personal conversion of his own in the late 60s, as so many people in the country did, because of race and because of Vietnam, that he began to get Muhammad Ali, that he began to sympathize with Muhammad Ali. So this is where Muhammad Ali is important, in much the same way that rock and roll was important. You know, if rock and roll was going to be important ever, it would have been useless if older people had gotten it immediately and liked it immediately.
I began to move away from the Dick Young camp just in conversations with Howard Cosell in the later years, and I suddenly made a 180-degree turn.
In 1970, more than 3 years into Ali's exile, and after being turned down by 22 states, Ali received permission to fight in the state of Georgia.
As you know, for years, Muhammad Ali has not been allowed to fight. He couldn't get a license anywhere. There is a state senator in Georgia named Leroy Johnson. Georgia does not have a state athletic commission. The city of Atlanta does. Through the auspices of Senator Leroy Johnson, Ali got a boxing license in the city of Atlanta.
As Ali prepared for his comeback against Jerry Quarry, America now stood behind Muhammad Ali.
Everybody understood that punishing a sportsman for his political views was not something that was justified. And I think the nation grew up in a lot of ways because of that situation.
When we come back, the heavyweight fighter now known as Muhammad Ali re-enters the ring as he puts his boxing skills to the test after 3.5 years in exile.
You know, it's a good feeling to have a chance to earn a living again, you know. That's the only way I look at it. And just a lot of people, you know, do a lot of talking, have done a lot of talking. Now that I wasn't able to defend myself, Ring Magazine, Boxing Illustrated, and various sports writers, and it's not only defeating an opponent, but defeating a lot of critics and experts who took advantage of me when I was down. And now it's just going to be a pleasure to see the faces after all this is over.
On October 26, 1970, Muhammad Ali returned to the ring. In his comeback fight, Ali prevailed over Jerry Quarry, a tough and legitimate challenger. Ali won his next fight against Oscar Bonavena, another strong opponent. Then, on June 28, 1971, more than 4 years after Ali had refused induction into the Army, the Supreme Court unanimously overturned his conviction.
The U.S. government didn't have enough power to raise the love and affection that this nation had for that man. You hear what I said? The government didn't have enough power to raise the love and affection that this nation had for that man.
It's been said that Muhammad Ali created the standard for the modern-day fighter, the bigger, faster athlete. But Ali's reach went so far beyond the boxing ring that he grew to symbolize many things to many people. A person who was more than just a boxing champion.
Deeply, profoundly religious person, a person who wants to help, a person who in the end, you discover, was a lover all along. This great fighter who could knock you out and beat you to a pulp if he wanted to, was basically a great lover of people, a great lover of society.
One of the secrets about Muhammad, I think, is that he's one of the few athletes I've ever seen who was able to draw energy and imagination from the external world.
Ali's connection to the world, the bond forged under fire between 1964 and 1970, became especially strong between the very young and the very old.
And there was always a sense of Ali, you know, as protector. You know, part of that messianic sense of destiny was a sense that as such, as champion, he was the protector of those who were vulnerable, those who could be bullied.
He turns around and cares for other people, like little babies and poor people and drunks and dope addicts, and interested in riding subways or interested in walking in the slums. I have to stop and watch this man. I have to stop and wonder, why is he doing this?
And you could see the light of the Spirit shining from his eyes, and you wanted to go in the direction he was going because you knew that there were going to be good things there, there was going to be warmth there, and that he was going to tell you the truth.
Muhammad Ali, there is no quote-unquote athlete to compare him to in the 20th century. Well, you can do it, but they will suffer. The other people will suffer from the comparison because he is so totally outside of all the norms of his occupation.
He was just one of those rare people of the 20th century, like Einstein or Picasso or Louis Armstrong, who came through here and thrilled us in so many different ways, and there's nobody else, there's no other athlete, I think, who had such social significance, maybe even more than Jackie Robinson. I put him up there with one of the top 4 or 5 human beings of the 20th century.